Dave, hot topic, of course, rising house prices, and here in Galway we've heard plenty about it as well. Do you just want to refute those claims before we start?
No, just before we go on to talk about finance, I was just thinking when I was listening to Maura talking about the dip and dip, I think they should have a section for an ollie dipper, and you could decide what classifies as a winner in that case.
All right.
What do you think?
Okay, there you go. Just point at who I... Okay, no, stop. But the house prices, what in Galway, let's focus on the city here, because I know over recent weeks and months we've seen we hear reports of a steady rise. But what's behind that? Like, is it does the old supply and demand rule again?
See, there's a number of issues here, Ollie. I mean, the first thing I want to deal with is the fact is that we've seen in recent weeks a lot of commentators from different sources coming out kind of worrying people that we might be getting into a property bubble again. Also kind of cautioning about the rise in property prices. And I mean, maybe I have a very simplistic view of it. You tell me, or anybody listening will tell me, I don't know. But my theory on the property market is, at the height of the boom, we had an unrealistic property market for all the reasons we know, and I won't go into it, right? On the opposite side, when the slump came, we had what I call a dysfunctional property market. And a dysfunctional property market is where you don't have normal activity of people being able to get mortgages to buy a home for themselves. Forget about investors, right? Because they couldn't access finance and they didn't have the confidence to buy. So as a result, you ended up with this disproportionate slump in prices. I know that people will say the market is the market is the market, and it's right. But if you look behind what's causing or driving the market, you have to say that the people who are buying property at the worst part of the slump were only investors or people who had cash, right? You didn't have the normal activity. So now we've seen prices rise from a level which was totally skewed on the downside. And now we're coming back to what I would describe as getting towards normal activity and normal property prices. So it annoys me to see when you have confidence coming back into the property market, commentators coming out and saying, look, we could be in a property bubble and there's this issue and there's that issue, and trying to talk it down. I mean, if you look, as I said, take the simplistic theory that I'm using, I think it makes sense. I don't think we're anywhere near a normal activity in the property market, because rising rents have shown that we have a load of people trapped in the rental market who really want to buy. Why can't they buy? They can't get finance. Despite what the banks are saying, the level of lending for mortgages is pretty poor. And that's been shown by the fact that the government have announced in that construction plan that they're going to put in place for the next 4 or 5 years, that they're going to bring in a scheme before the end of the year which is going to allow first-time buyers to get on the ladder, to get mortgages by bringing in an insurance scheme that will allow the banks to lend more. I mean, if the banks were doing the normal level of lending they should be doing, well, why is the government stepping in? And first-time buyers are incredibly important for the market, because obviously they're the foundation that trickles above that. So I would say certainly the Dublin market is a particular problem in the sense that there is a huge lack of supply. But even if you go out and you talk to people here in Galway, they say the amount of houses that are available to purchase in Galway, forget about apartments now, houses available is limited.
Absolutely, and that's I would say replicated right around in the country parts as well, where you still may look at ghost estates, and yet you'll go looking for accommodation anywhere. It's almost impossible to get. We'll move on, Dave, in the couple of minutes we have left. And again, we're talking about pensions and grossly insufficient life cover to provide for the family. And it's surprising the numbers of people involved in that as well.
Yeah, the one thing about pensions, and it's not just to do with pensions particularly, there's an interesting statistic came out in Britain during the week. 3.6 billion euro of pensions are in what they call lost pension accounts. People who've moved from one employment to another and forgot that they had a pension, right? And maybe didn't realise, people are very blasé sometimes about realising what their pension arrangements were and forgetting that they had a deduction coming off their salary in a particular employment.
Can you bring that with you to your next job?
Oh, you can. There's a variety of things you can do with it. But I would always say, and I stress, and people have come to me who've I had a pension in such and such a job. I had a case recently, and it turned out that it was quite a substantial pension. He didn't know what it was. I mean, it was years ago that he was working in this particular employment. So I would just say you need to make yourself aware of what you have. I mean, would you forget if you had 10,000 in a deposit account? No. Well, I mean, so we're talking about that kind of level and more, where people have moved, chopped and changed, in which people are mobile, moving from one employment to another nowadays. So it's important that you realise what you have and what you can do with it, and that if you want to bring it with you or do all sorts of other things, but make sure you know what your entitlements are.
I suppose the employer contribution is another important part of pensions, that, you know, while it may have been matched 50-50 in your last job, if you do move on, to make sure that you investigate what...
Can I give you a very simple statistic? If an employer is contributing €50 and you're contributing €50 a month, and you're at the higher end of the tax bracket, the net cost to you of that €100 is in fact about 60. Or sorry, 30, correct myself.
Dave, we'll leave it at that. Thanks again, Dave McCarthy, with his regular finance slot. He'll be back again, of course, with us next week.